is Scott Schilling. And I want to tell you a story. So Scott is one of those people, and you meet certain people in your life. And this isn't your normal introduction, but there's people in your life that are givers. They're people, you know, his topic today is 7 steps to leadership legacy. And I will tell you, as a leader, we're all leaders. You know, and Scott does a talk on sales, and he'll say, how many people are in sales? That's usually a question a sales training person does. Everybody in the room should raise their hand, right? By the same token, if you really are honest with yourself, we're all leaders. There are people following us. If you look around, there are people that are doing it. Scott is a leader. He's a consummate leader. He is somebody who is present in the moment and is willing to give first, with the possibility that maybe nothing come out of it. But the reality of it is that's what leaders do. Leaders eat last. Leaders pretty much give first. And I always said leaders take the blame and give the credit. That's a true leader. So Scott is that example. When I first met Scott, we were at a conference together, and a guy by the name of Anil Gupta came up to me, and he said, "You're doing these trainings." And actually, Anil was speaking to me for me over at Richardson Plano Networkers, and he said, "Have you ever met Scott Schilling?" And I said, "No, can't say that I have. Name kind of sounds familiar, but this is a guy that's written a number of books. He's spoken to thousands of people. I mean, this guy is somebody that I should know." But at that point, to be honest, I didn't know him. And so I said, "Hey, good. Hey, nice to meet you, Scott. I meet people all the time." And I said, "Oh, by the way, I've got an opening like next Friday. Could you come speak to Richardson Plano Networkers?" Randy laughs because he knows I'm always looking for people. To do 48 a year, you've got to find somebody, and you want new people. So Scott came over. He said, "Sure." I'm thinking this guy, you know, after Anil talked, he's real busy and everything. And he was there the next week, and he did a phenomenal job of really helping a lot of the people in the room. And that's the key, is that you always are on, you're always giving. And if I can say anything about this guy who's written multiple books, who's talked in front of thousands of audiences, is he is a true leader because he is a giver, and he doesn't worry about whether he ever gets it back. And I just really, I'm thankful for Scott, and thankful for the opportunity to introduce him. Let's all welcome Scott Schilling. Is that okay?
That means you're not
I didn't embarrass you.
No,
Okay.
that was awesome. Thank you, I appreciate the opportunity, and actually, as a sales trainer, a lot of times people say, you know, you come into groups and you, even though I could train on sales and marketing and business growth and those things for a week straight, you know, as Randy and I were talking today, he said, "So you're going to teach us sales today?" I said, "No, I'm really not." And he said, "Oh, why?" And the answer is really kind of tied to what David said. And we haven't even talked about this, but in this last week, I found a 60-year-old friend, and all of a sudden that friend had been identified having bone and blood cancer. And all of a sudden you go, whew. And then that afternoon, another friend calls and said, "Did you hear about Stephanie's husband?" "No." "Well, he was coming home from work, was a little disoriented, stopped to get a bottle of water, dropped over with a massive heart attack, and they couldn't revive him. 54 years old. Whew. And so you start thinking about, and don't understand, sales is a very important topic. But today, this is a more important topic, and it's really about leadership and what it takes to be a leader. And so the question is, are you leaving your legacy or are you living your legacy? Legacy shouldn't be something that we accumulate over time to leave once we've passed. Legacy should really be what we're known for as we live. We should be known to be, okay, we're going a little too far, but it should be what we're known for as we live. In other words, I'm honored that David would introduce me the way he did about being a servant leader. because then my task has been accomplished. My task is to help first and see what happens later. Really a high intention and a low attachment. A high intention of imparting something great for each and every one of you here today. And a low attachment as to what that might be. See, it's not my job to determine what you need necessarily. It's my job to ask you what you would like and work to accomplish that. But it is my job to impart the best possible message I can when I have that opportunity to do that. And one of the things that came to me through this was this article on a nurse talking to people on their deathbed, the top 5 regrets that people had. The first was, I wish that I had let myself be happier. You know, there's never a time where you can't be a little bit happier. You know, I look at people who are working so hard to be miserable. You know, it's like, I just don't get it. It doesn't mean that you're not serious a lot of the times, but that was number 5. Number 4 is, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Not too long ago, I had my 40th high school reunion. Now, I know that's hard for a 29-year-old guy, but what was interesting is 2.5 years earlier, somebody posted our 8th grade football picture on Facebook, and people started to identify the players on the team. And that led to somebody posting our 9th grade picture, which led to more people doing it. And then there were more. And by the time we got to the reunion, there were 267 people in a group that were already communicating, had been for 2.5 years. We got to the reunion and it was amazing. And so now that group has stayed in touch. It's absolutely amazing what's going on. Not only that, but become a support group for each other, because some of us are becoming more mature. That's code word for old, Randy. That's right, we're going along. The third is, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. That's a guy. You know, the fact is, we all have this opportunity to be grateful on a daily basis. We all have the opportunity to be thankful on a daily basis. We all have an opportunity to love and hug people. And sometimes people sit there, and I know Sean and I do this a lot, or he'll sign virtually every email, big hugs, or hugs from Dallas. And the time that I spent with Jack Canfield and in all the inner circles and everything, I mean, we're huggers. I mean, don't come at me with a handshake. I'm a hugger, right? And I've announced in front of audiences of 10 and 15,000 people, hey, by the way, I just want you to know I'm a hugger and I'm accepting hugs after the presentation. It's amazing what that does for the other people. I mean, it's pretty cool for yourself. Sure. But if you want to set up a little success, that's one way of doing it. Number 2 was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. You know, again, we're in a day and age where we have such a great opportunity with technology and so much that we can do, digital marketing and all the different things that are available to us. It's not even about working smarter. It's about working right. It's about figuring out how to do things in an even better way. And that's why Jenna and I do our lives every morning, and it's so much fun to figure out how to help people do things right. You know, it's just, if you're missing something, ask. The vast majority of people will help you. But this is the one that's really amazing to me. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. How many times are we caught or pigeonholed into what somebody else has in mind for us, as opposed to us doing what we really love to do? I know I've had this conversation with Sean, and I think Jenna at this point too. Middle of December, there were a number of different things going on, and a friend of mine asked me to be on her TV show, and as we were talking, she said, you know, you've been through a near-death experience. You had to ask yourself a whole bunch of questions. What question did you ask yourself? And I said, what now? And all of a sudden I went, wait a second. I've never asked myself that question. Why did that come up right now? And all of a sudden, like this flash went past me of the last 3 or 4 years since that near-death experience, going, well, God wouldn't have saved me for that. That's not big enough. Or that didn't have enough impact. And I went, holy cow. Have I literally been doing that to myself? And I just made a decision. I'm not going to do anything that doesn't bring me joy. See, when I come up here and I speak, this brings me joy. That's why, again, a high intention of sharing a message that serves each and every one of you, and a low attachment. You know, my desire is for you to leave with joy, is for you to leave with some valuable information. And if you don't, oh well, I'm going to have fun doing this. It's just the way it works. But it's not about me, it's about us collectively. Now, for me, this all started a long, long time ago when I read See You at the Top. And this is a hostage exchange with Zig. He signed a copy of his last book to me, and I signed my first book to him. Now, it was after that period of time, but I said, at that lunch, I got to sit with him, and I said, Zig, you know, when I was a young boy, I read See You at the Top, and there was a quote in that book that forever changed my life. You can have everything in life you want when you simply help enough other people get what they want. I said, Zig, when did you create that? He looked over, he said, Scott, I didn't create that. My mama taught me that when I was 5. It was part of my christening when I was 12. I said, Zig, can I share that story? He said, I'd be honored. See, we don't realize how much impact we can have. And again, now we're in this digital world. Obviously, we've got a group potentially watching the live stream. Sean's recording in the back. We're going to take that. Sean's got a live stream going over here. I mean, we've got multiple different ways that this presentation. I can't control who is affected by what I say today. All I can control is working to say things that can affect people in a good and positive way. And that's our challenge every day. That's for each and every one of us. That's not just me as we go along. So my question is, what's in your heart? You know, you heard the old, what's in your wallet, right? The commercial. Well, we're all a product of the choices we've made and the actions we've taken. And so it's basically your core values that identify you. Well, for me, that's faith, honesty, integrity, courage, and stewardship. Those are my core values. And I have to live to those because the only one who judges me on that, quite frankly, is me. Now, everybody has the opportunity to, and that's why I share them. But if we look at those, faith is belief in higher source, and I'm going to get into that in a second. Whatever that higher source is to you, that is not my job. My job is to believe what I believe. It is your job to believe what you believe. But I encourage you to believe. That's actually my job, is to encourage you to believe. The second is honesty, being upright and fair in all actions in life. You know, treat people with dignity, honor, respect. It's not that hard. You know, treat people as if they're worthy of being here with you. You know, we're travelers together in this whole process. Integrity, being whole, complete, have soundness of moral character. Are we missing a little bit in our society today? Possibly. Again, I'm not the judge. I'm just asking a question. The point is, integrity comes from the word integer. One. Wholeness. How you do anything is how you do everything. I've been very blessed. I've done well over 2,500 live events, speaking to probably close to 1 million people live. Do you ever see the on-stage persona of a speaker and the backstage persona and realize it's not the same person? Unfortunately, I've had that opportunity to see that. One guy has a very large extended family. He had nieces everywhere we went. It was amazing. Some of you will get that later. Then there's courage, right? Courage is not absence of fear. Courage is fighting through the fear. Courage is going through when, you know, it just isn't what you think it is. There's a lot of people who have a lot of courage. I congratulate all our vets and everybody who have given and sacrificed so much for our freedom. And to think that people don't respect that or aren't respecting that is a little aggravating, I gotta tell you. Because we wouldn't have what we have today without their courage. And then the last is stewardship. That's being responsible and overseeing, protecting things. Now, that could be everything from our environment to not littering. I mean, stewardship, it's funny, I haven't always been the best steward of things. And as we get a little more mature, again, code word for old, we figure out that maybe we haven't been the best stewards of certain areas of our lives. Now, here's the good news. As long as we're breathing, we can make a difference and we can make a change. And so I'm working to be a far better steward of some of those areas today. And again, the encouragement that other people do the same as we go along. My mission was stated way back in 2003 as I wrote my first book, but it's basically multifaceted. Create a community of over 1 million people that have a desire to lift each other up, that have a desire to support each other, to do that spiritually, personally, professionally, financially, to create enough influence where I can cause over $100 million in charitable giving, and that I can positively impact 1 billion or more lives on the planet. Now, I was doing a radio show not long ago, and somebody said, well, that's kind of crazy. I said, so you're saying that Mark Zuckerberg is better than I am? And he said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, 500 million people a day come to Facebook. That was just an idea he had. It was created, and that's where it's gone to. Well, if he could do that, I could potentially do that. See, he said, well, you're being kind of flip about all this. I said, well, 1 billion's only 1 out of 7. That's not that big a deal. I mean, I'm not doing that well at 1 out of 7. Again, you're being flip. I said, well, what if I'm terrible at it and I hit 100 million? What if I'm not good at it at all? I hit 10 million. What if I'm really bad at it and I only touch 1 million lives? Would that be okay? He said, you're serious about this, aren't you? I go, well, why wouldn't I be? There's no limit unless I create that limit. Henry Ford said in 1939, think you can, think you can't.
Right.
You're right either way.
That's right.
The fact is, the only limitation rests within your mind. If we feel that we can do this, we're working to do some pretty big things these days. People are saying, well, you haven't accomplished it. Well, these days aren't over. We're working at it every day. We keep on going. The 7 steps to living your legacy really come in an acronym, harmony. Now, I'm an acronym guy, and the reason I use acronyms is because if you remember the acronym, the chances are you might remember the lesson along the way. And so I really truly believe that this is across all 7 areas of life with harmony. So what's the H? The H stands for honor your higher source. For me, that's God and Jesus Christ. For you, it might be Buddha, Allah, Hindi, the universe, whatever you choose to call it, I'm fine with. Again, not my job to convince you what to believe. It is my job to convince you to believe. Now, there's a very interesting definition, and it's confidence in the unseen and assurance of the unknown. Now, that's actually the definition for 2 separate words, fear and faith. The definition of fear is confidence in the unseen, assurance of the unknown. It hasn't happened, but I'm afraid of it. But it's also the definition of faith, confidence in the unseen, assurance of the unknown. None of you would be here without faith. How can I say that? Did you get in a car? Did you drive on these roads? Did you cross the street? Did you stop at a street light? Did somebody else maybe not stop at a street light? Do you understand? You would never be in business without faith. Why can I say that? Because it's confidence in the unseen. Nobody's come into your business. It's assurance of the unknown. Nobody is following you. How do you know? So you must have faith. And faith has three parts. Knowledge of the belief, that's ask. Agreement with the belief, that's believe. And trust in that belief, that's receive. So for those who refer to this as ask, believe, receive, you're right. That's faith. Now, again, what your higher source is, that's up to you. Where do you believe that that message comes from? That's up to you. But the point is we have to have knowledge of it, agreement with it, and trust in it as we go along. And then we have to understand that the plan and timing are perfect. Whatever that plan and timing is for you. See, you can't believe that the plan and timing are perfect and this negative event shouldn't have happened. You can believe the negative event shouldn't have happened or the plan and timing is perfect. But you can't believe them both at the same time. So I choose to believe that the plan and timing are perfect. Now, nobody likes negative events. I'm not trying to convince you to like those. What I'm saying is they've been put there for your good. They've been put there to educate you, to help you along the way. The A stands for align yourself professionally. This is your career. David said this. In order to be a leader, you have to be lead worthy. You have to be worthy of somebody leading you. Be a living example of something positive, of something going in the right direction. Quite frankly, in order to be a good leader, at some point you have to be a really great follower. Because if you don't follow, you can't learn how to lead. Because you have to experience that along the way. This is where your core values come into place and your mission, or really your vision. You've got to be able to cast a vision for others to see what they can follow or why they should follow. Because if I can cast that vision, I now have a path to walk on as far as that goes. Be on purpose. My life purpose statement is to inspire and empower others to serve humanity through living their life's purpose in spirit, love, and joy. So when I get asked to speak at an event like this, let me run it through my filter, my life purpose statement. To inspire and empower others to serve humanity. That's all of you. So that you can live your life's purpose. Man, that feels pretty good. In spirit, closer to God than I've ever been. Love my wife, my family, my friends more than I ever have. Joy, I told you I made the proclamation. I'm not doing anything without joy. I'm in. See, it's the same thing. If people come to you and you don't have this filter, if you don't have this life purpose statement, you tend to fall for anything at that time. I encourage you, if you need help developing a life purpose statement, I've got plenty of material on my website. I'll help you with that. And then you have to express your passion. Do you think I'm passionate about what I do? I love doing this. See, I love being able to help share a message that just might be the piece that somebody's missing that day. Again, is it forever? Sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Hard to tell as you go along. The point is, when you've got a big enough what and a strong enough why, the how shows up. When you got a big enough what you want to accomplish in your life and a strong enough why you want to accomplish it, the how shows up. Most people ask the wrong question. How is this going to happen? How am I going to get that? How are we going to get funding? How are we going to build this site? How are we going to... It's the wrong question. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Be very clear on those, and the how to do it shows up. Make sense? The R stands for recreate yourself daily. By a show of hands, how many of you plan on staying in your body the rest of your life? 3 of you. That's awesome. The point is, if you don't, then why are you treating it the way you are? Again, no judgment here. I'm just saying, if you plan on staying in your body the rest of your life, you might want to think about some of the actions that you take towards that. Now, why do I say that? It's because it comes down to Recreation actually is the word recreation. How many of us get away from our job enough to really recreate ourselves, to really refresh ourselves and do this? For me, I talk about my car accident. Now, my car accident was about December 6, 2014. I was going to a speaking event, balanced a box of books on my knee, flipped open the back of my SUV at the time. It was 18 degrees here in Dallas, very cold day. The cylinders did not hold it up, so when I flipped it up and ducked underneath it, as fast as I threw it up, it came down and hit me in the back of the head. Now, it cold cocked me, just about knocked me silly, but I had to go speak, so I did. I had this headache, 2 or 3 on a 10 scale. But what I found out is about 4 days later, I flew out to California to do an infomercial shoot with a client. We shot for 4 days. We were on set that whole time, and we decided to take Sunday off, and we were at Universal City Walk. I was walking, and all of a sudden I wasn't walking. My legs just stopped. And I was numb and tingling stumps from here down. And I looked at my right foot and I said, move. And it said no. And I said, move. And it said no. And then all of a sudden I started to get dizzy. And I reached back and I grabbed a railing. One of my friends, I was walking with 7 people, 3 of them doctors. Coincidence?
Nope.
I think not. God incidents. They grabbed a chair, they flipped it underneath me, I came back into it. All of a sudden, one of these highly educated doctors looks at me and he says, what's your phone number? And I give him my phone number. I go, why would you ask me that? Can't you see I can't stand? He goes, oh, no reason. Well, I was cold, I was gray, I was clammy, I was sweating profusely. I was in the middle of a full-blown cerebellum stroke. And when they went in and they found this dissection in my brain in the PICA, the posterior interior cerebellum artery. A dissection is when the inner and outer walls separate, and all of a sudden I had a flap in an artery in my brain. And it decided to shut down, and when it decided to shut down, then it did that. That is what a full-blown cerebellum stroke looks like in your brain. Now, if any of you understand what the cerebellum does, it's memory, fine motor skills, walking, talking, vertigo. By the grace of God, I walk away with nothing. Now, people sit there and say, how can this be? It almost got to the point where you're telling people about what you've been through, and it's almost like I had to carry my MRI around to verify that this happened. You shouldn't be the way you are. Sorry, I'm an overachiever. I mean, I don't know what to say at this point, right? I spent 6 days in intensive care with them trying to figure out why I was alive. Not trying to keep me alive, trying to understand why I was alive. And when the team was out there looking at my MRI and I could hear the doctor speaking, the doctor said, we've got 2 other stroke patients on the floor. Their MRI is nothing compared to this guy. This guy's in here laughing, goofing off, joking with us. I don't get it. I just yelled out, Doc, I got it. And he leaned in and he goes, what? I said, I got it all figured out. So the whole surgical team walks in and he goes, okay, smart ass, what is it? I said, it's obvious. It's God's grace, mercy, and favor on my life. He said, well, that's as good an answer as we got. And he walked out. So the point is, when you start talking about legacy, what do you save for? What are you here for? What difference can you make? You can make a lot of difference. It doesn't have to be the biggest difference ever. Any difference is a difference. The M, make money foundational. This is the financial side, the money talk. I was speaking in Toronto, August 28th, 2003. And at the end, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen were in the back of the room, and they came walking up to me, and they started thumping me on the chest. You ever have that? Hurts like crazy. It was like, dude, stop that. Anyway, he said, son, how come you're not out speaking professionally? I love when Jack Canfield calls me son. But anyway, he said, son, how come you're not out speaking professionally? And I said, well, I got a job. He said, that's a horrible answer. And he said, you can give me any other answer other than you got a job. I said, well, then I don't have an answer for you. He said, quite frankly, God's given you talents and capabilities that he hasn't shared with everybody else. And when you're not using those talents and capabilities, you're robbing humanity. You're cheating humanity. You're being selfish. I went, damn, back off. I mean, being a little hard on a guy. And he said, you have an obligation to make as much money as you can make. And I said, I don't like the O word. I like the I word. I've got an invitation to make as much money. And I said, oh, so this is about the money. He goes, you think this is about the money? This isn't about the money. This is about the two things that come with money. The ability to do good work and the influence you can have. Good work takes money. Influence takes money. It's not about the money. It's about the work that you can do because of the money. So we all have an invitation to make as much as we possibly can, not for the sake of the money, but for the good we can do and the influence we can have. Jim Rohn said it this way, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. You've got to continue to do things like this. Come into networking groups. Come to places where people are speaking and sharing whatever wisdom they might have had through their mentors or through their opportunities. The O stands for open your mind to more. This is the personal side. Your life is an experience determined by the books that you read and the people you meet. I was honored to be able to share the stage with Charlie Tremendous Jones, his last public event before he passed. And Charlie's dedication on my book, or endorsement of my book, Talking with Giants, is thank you for help changing the world one book at a time. See, we're all an amalgamation of our experiences, who we meet, who we know, who we get in touch with. That's why, quite frankly, there's only two answers in life. Hell yes and hell no. If there's an opportunity to speak, that's a hell yes answer. Yeah. Well, what's going to come out of it? I don't know. That's not the point is we need to offer up when we have the opportunity to offer up, when we can help. Basically, you got to dedicate yourself to CANI, constant, never-ending personal improvement. You got to keep on reading. There's new information. There's great masters that have come before us, but there are still far more people that are learning. I learn every day. I was talking to one of my coaching clients one day. I said, let me ask you a question. Can a 7-year-old mentor a 10-year-old? No, that's not possible. I said, so a 7-year-old doesn't know something a 10-year-old needs to know? He said, well, I didn't say that. And I said, well, in essence, you did. Can a 7-year-old mentor a 10-year-old? Yes. Can a 10-year-old mentor a 7-year-old? Yes. Can a 7-year-old mentor a 60-year-old? Yes. The point is, there's so much fighting right now, these dang millennials. Oh my God. Why'd they come? I can give you the reason. You caused it. The question is, are you embracing them and sharing the wisdom that you've had from the years? If you take a boomer with the wisdom who's taken the butt kicking in life, with the millennial who wants to serve more in life but doesn't want the butt kicking, don't be mad at them because they don't want to get their butt kicked. They just figured it out sooner. It's just what we were accustomed to. They figured out they don't have to do that. Well, why not match up and share that wisdom down to the millennials? Ask yourself these 5 questions in every situation, and you can turn anything into a positive. What's the lesson? What's the gift? What did I do to create it? How can I modify it next time to make it better? And how will this serve me the rest of my life? So even though I had this massive cerebellum stroke and I was very blessed to come through it the way I've come through it, what's the lesson? When you get hit in the head and you have a headache for 8 days, that's not normal. Go get checked out. What's the gift? I'm still here. What did you do to create it? Well, I probably wasn't as careful flipping open the back of my SUV as I should have been. I wasn't as cautious. How would you modify it next time? Sell the car. Get a different car. I got rid of it immediately. I don't keep any car that attacks me. How is this going to serve me the rest of my life? Sharing the story. Saying, hey, if you've got a headache for 8 days, even if it's a low-grade headache, that's not normal. Pain is an indication that something is wrong. Right, Rayanne? Possibly wrong. So, the N stands for nurture your relationships. Relationships are not 50-50. They are 100-100. If I go to the river and I see these trees and I take the tops of the trees and I bend them over and I bend this side over and I lash the very top at a 50-50, I have built a bridge. How strong is that bridge? Not very. But if I come all the way over and I come all the way over and I now build it like that and lash it, I can now make it impenetrable. Relationships are 100-100. Well, wait a second, Scott. That's not fair. That's not right. It's not about fair. It's not about right. It just is about what it's about. Give everything you have to your relationship. If you give so much so long that you're in deficit, receiving. Always, if you want it to be truly rewarding going forward. To help, Dr. Gary Chapman has created 2 great books. The first is The 5 Love Languages: Words of Affirmation, Quality Time, Receiving Gifts, Acts of Service, Physical Touch. I did 288 talks a year for 6 years. I was on the road. I left on Sunday, came back on Friday. I would call Peggy 3 or 4 times a day to let her know how much I loved her. I would send her flowers from the road once a week. As soon as I got home, I would do the honey. Do list immediately without conversation, and every night to this day I still rub her back every night. Now that's 4 out of the 5 love languages I was awesome at. Her love language, quality time. Did I say I left on Sunday and I came back on Friday? Which is why I changed that, because all of a sudden after 5.5 years that was enough. It was time to match that love language. But this is the book that the vast majority of people don't know about, and that's the 5 apology languages. And just as there are love languages that people need to hear, there are apology languages that people need to hear. Expressing regret, accepting responsibility, making restitution, genuinely repenting, requesting forgiveness. Understand that we both love to be loved in certain ways, and we love to be apologized to in certain ways. And the Y stands for yes to others, yes to yourself. This is really your legacy. Mother Teresa said it this way: if you can't feed 100, feed 1. Sometimes people say, well, that's not big enough. I can't get to the masses. Feed 1. Make the difference with 1. I had a client of mine, a coaching client one time, and she was so upset because her book came out at the same time as 50 Shades of Grey. And 50 Shades of Grey was outselling her book a gazillion to 1. And she was so upset because she said, this trash is out there outselling my good works. I said, oh, so you're after fame, not impact. And she goes, no, I'm really after impact. I said, so then what do the numbers matter to you? And she said, well, I'm not having as much impact as I could. I said, this is all a matter of perspective. I said, what if you only ever sell one book? She goes, that would be terrible. It'd be a travesty. I said, wait a second, I'm not done. But you sold that book to the next Mother Teresa. She goes, that would be amazing. I said, so are you after impact or are you after fame? She said, I'm after impact. Understand, if you go after impact, there is the possibility of fame, not the guarantee of it. But if you go after fame, more than likely, fame is fleeting. I would encourage you all to go after impact. Quite frankly, in my life, I'm going after impact. People go, how could you do 2,500 events and I don't know your name? How could you speak to 1 million people live and I don't know your name? I go, I don't know. I'm out here. If you were supposed to know my name, you'd know my name. But if you're not, that's okay, because I feel fine about the work. I'm content about the work that I have done to the people I've touched. That's where you got to be. You've got to know your impact. There was a book in 1963 called The Butterfly Effect, and it basically says when a butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the world, it changes enough to change the molecular consistency of this side of the world. The fact is, the fact that you're here today is changed something in the world. The more that we put positivity out into the world, people sit there and say, well, positive thinking doesn't solve everything. Well, I can tell you it gets you closer than negative thinking does. Can you prove any and all of it? The fact is, if we were nicer, gentler to all people, things would be better. Do we agree? So just do one more nice thing, very simply. It's what actually, when I came out with my first book, Talking with Giants, Cynthia Kersey made an impassioned plea from stage to support Habitat for Humanity. Women, we're going to build 40 homes in 40 days. Men, the only thing we need is your checkbook. We're going to swing all the hammers, we're going to drive all the nails, but we need you guys to pay for it. Friend on this side says, I'm going to write her a $50,000 check. That was amazing. Friend on this side says, well, I'm not going to write her a $50,000 check. I'm going to write her a $5,000 check. They both looked at me and said, what are you going to do? And I said, I can't. And I said, I've never felt so small in my life, that there was something that I wanted to do so badly that I couldn't do. But I said, it didn't mean I couldn't do something. And so I went to the back of the room and I said, Cynthia, I'm Scott Schilling from Dallas, Texas. I got a lot of friends with a lot of money. I can't very well ask my friends to give me their money so I can help you. She goes, so what can I count you for? I said, I got no clue. But I said, I'm committing to you that I will do something to help you. And she said, so what does that mean? I said, I have no idea, but I assure you that I will figure it out. Well, that night I was waiting for a 12:15 a.m. flight back to Dallas, and I'm in the lobby of the LAX Marriott, and here comes Mark Victor Hansen in Dear Abby. And Mark comes walking by and he goes, Scott, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just hanging out waiting for my plane. He said, have you had dinner? I said, no, sir. He said, come have dinner with Abby and I. So all of a sudden I'm walking to dinner with Dear Abby and Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul fame, and we get to a table. And I mean, there is speaking royalty at that table, and I knew them. I knew basically everybody that was at that table. I said, man, I know a bunch of giant friends. And all of a sudden I went, well, what if I was just talking with giants? I mean, I get to talk with giants, right? What if I did article? What if I helped them promote themselves and promote their charities and promote their cause? And we put it all in one book. And so I wrote a book that details Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Harv Eker, Cynthia Kersey. She caused it. She had to be in the book. A buddy of mine who's the CEO of Kimberly-Clark. There's 21 charities tied to that book. The money from that book has gone to those charities ever since. See, I couldn't write a check. It didn't mean I couldn't do something. In fact, if you want a free download of the book, just go to twgfreegift.com and you can download the book free. That's why Sean and I have come up with the U+1 lifestyle travel savings passports. We now use these travel savings passports to raise money for good deeds. We had a meeting with the Multiple Sclerosis Society yesterday. We're looking to raise money for churches and for charities and for different things. We're supporting people making good decisions, so we're rewarding them when they donate using these products. If you want to learn more, you can go to saveontravelexpenses.com. So people say, well, Scott, you're not in the travel business. No, I'm in the rewarding people for taking appropriate action business. See, we don't always have to have the answers. We just have to figure out what our opportunities were. Zig summed it up this way when we were separating. He leaned in and he said, Scott, can I share one more thing with you? I said, absolutely, Zig. He said, if you're ever discouraged or lack the encouragement you need, always remember, at least at one point, even Moses was a basket case. I said, Zig, you still got it. He said, I always will. My offer to you is really simple. Please let me know how I can be of service to you. What it comes down to is, this is my real email address and my real stuff. Why do I do that? It doesn't matter how big the audience is. I can't control whether anybody ever uses it. I can only control whether I offer it. If we're truly going to live a leadership legacy and we're going to be known for what we're known for today, then we've got to offer and lift people up. Thanks for the opportunity.
Questions?
Any questions? We're actually at 1 o'clock, just to acknowledge that
I'll be back.
very, very intent on time. So don't be embarrassed if you have to leave. But is there any questions for Scott? I was just so engrossed in what you were saying, frankly, Scott, that I'm normally more on top of the time, but awesome job.
Well, thank you.
Incredible. So many things. Harmony.
Yep.
Remember that? Okay, so Scott really touched us. Any questions?
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. I would hug you, but we're on
Yeah.
different levels, so I thought that might be kind of weird. Hugging me around the waist. Jenna, do you have anything you'd like to share? Okay, well, anyway, thank you to the Facebook Live audience. Any acknowledgments? Anybody